So when I think about the biggest challenges facing science in the next decade, I guess I think about a couple of things that go hand in hand. Funding is always a challenge, and that's going to be true no matter what politics, no matter what country, no matter what time. As we push the boundaries further and further in all fields of science, it's an expensive endeavor. And so we have to prepare for that. We have to sort of think ahead. How are we going to be the leaders, and how are we going to plan for that? But the other side of the coin is the enthusiasm comes from the general public. And education is so incredibly important. And people talk about STEM, and they talk about education in elementary schools. I think there needs to just be a broader attempt to get people involved in science and to understand that they're part of it. They're part of everything that's going on. They're part of everything that we observe. They're part of the planet. They're part of medicine. And one of the things I really like about dog genetics is the way we do it is a partnership with the general population. All of our samples come from dog owners and breeders and people who go to agility shows and conformation shows and frisbee contests and everything else you can think of. So the first thing we always tell people is you're entering into a partnership with us. And we find that when we do that, they're really excited. They want to stay involved. They want to stay informed. They want to learn more. And I think we need to give the general public more opportunities like that.
The biggest challenge facing science is one of, and in the next decade is probably one that's been with it for a while, which is social responsibility, which is making sure that your applications have considered unintended consequences, including accidental and intentional abuse. And prioritization of uses of resources. I mean, when you're bringing down the costs, one of the prioritization, which is economic, becomes less critical. But there are other prioritizations in terms of how things are brought out, public relations, communication, making sure people understand making sure the public is engaged in a multi-way discussion. I think these are the big challenges.
There are so many challenges facing science today. There's obviously the subject matter. Doing visionary science is a bit like driving in a fog. Okay, you're trying to stick to the road, but you don't really know where the road is, and it's never been navigated before, and the fog clears. It clears a little bit over here, and you say, "Oh, I'm getting an idea." But then it also clears a little bit over there. And then the question then is, how do you ever know which way to go? So it's based on intuition. And the reason I bring that up is that really great science is driven by a combination of insight, experience, and guesswork. It can't be programmed. As much as we'd like it to be programmed, it can't be programmed. So the single biggest challenge that I think we have now in science is it's difficult enough to negotiate your way in a fog, but it's very, very difficult to do it when the folks that pay for the research require you to write out increasingly an accurate prescription of what you're going to do as you drive through the fog. Okay, and so as organizations like the NIH become more inflexible about the directions that you can take, meaning, of course, you can initiate your research, but it's harder to change the direction. And I know that the NIH has some mechanisms to try to specifically promote that, but nonetheless, overall, in the last 10 years, we've gone in a direction that's more conservative. And so I would say the single biggest challenge for science today is certainly the level of funding that we have, which is not adequate for foundational science, but also the style of the funding I think should be evaluated carefully in terms of whether it encourages the most creative work. It's not just the amount of money. We actually do have a lot of money for research in this country as compared to almost any other country. But it's as much of an issue of are we allocating it in the best way to make science more effective.